when Vasco asked if I could interview you for the main stage here, I, of course, obviously said yes. I'm a huge fan of OK Go's music and the incredible, kind of, as you just saw, idea-driven, ambitious, and oftentimes completely insane videos that they make. For instance, the video for Upside Down that you saw involved a lot of zero-gravity plane dives, and according to the internet, we can get into this, a fair amount of off-camera vomit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Confirmed.
None of it mine, luckily.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Okay, great. Seeing other people puke makes me puke.
Yeah, well, you know that at the end when the paint, like if you pop a paint balloon, it's gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Now you know what liquid looks like in zero gravity.
Oh, God. So, all right, so I dug even deeper into Damian and his work, and I was really blown away by his creative process with his obsession with craft and all the creativity and math that goes into it, and your habit of disrupting how the music business typically does things and favors something different and better. All right, so the first thing I wanted to ask you about is OK Go's label. Like Wieden+Kennedy, you're independent. Can you tell us about how that works, and how does being independent make you show up differently, and how do you think it helps you with your music, your work, and how you impact culture compared to being with a more typical kind of big music label?
Boy, we are independent because it works best for us. It's not like, I grew up in Washington, D.C., like in the very punk rock era when Discord Records was sort of my whole universe, and so like I wish I were as aggressively, angrily independent as they had been, right? But it's mostly just that the things we want to make and the ways that we connect with people, the whole point is it's not the way everyone else is doing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I shouldn't say that's the whole point, but that's why we're able to keep doing it. That's why we've been around for as long as we have. There's the major label industry, like the whole point is for them to be very good at maximizing whatever is popular right now and being able to service and amplify that. And we don't want to be what's popular right now. We want to make connections with our fans and our listeners and our viewers that last for a long time. Like the point is for us to make an emotional connection with people that they will remember and return to, and it's a part of their life. And that's not really what the major label model is, at least not anymore. You know, you used to need a major label to actually move your records to stores, and you used to even need a major label to promote to radio stations and stuff. But our label has exactly one band on it, and you know, we're not the most efficient label in the world, but we are able to like set our own priorities based on what we want the art to do in the world, as opposed to like, you know, whatever metrics matter right now. You know.
Got it. That's super cool. Okay. What are some of the things you've done in some of the videos for your music? So we just saw that, but sometimes it can feel a little abstract. Like when you explain it, I feel like oftentimes something that seems incredibly complicated becomes even like more complicated and impressive.
Yeah, I mean, what you mean? What are some of the most what are the ideas in those videos, basically?
Yes.
Let's see. So the most recent one is Robots and Mirrors. Before that, there were we did one for a song called A Stone Only Rolls Downhill, which was 64 single take videos laid out on phones, on iPhones, so that they make a big mosaic all together. And a lot of them have films of films within them, so it's just like a really big math project. And let's see, we did one where there was sort of 400 something events all happen within 3 or 4 seconds. Like it's basically a giant explosion that's filmed at super high speed, and then when you slow it down, you realize that everything is in line with the song, for a song called The One Moment. We've done so many, I guess we did one with a paper company in Japan that was actually a Thai paper company where it was sort of projection mapping, but using printers instead of projections. So it's actually printing out the background behind us. So it's a stop motion that goes over a couple days. We danced on treadmills, of course. We did a Super Bowl commercial with GM that was us driving playing a field of instruments by ramming the car through them. there's so many different things. It's mostly like we look, the abstract version is that we look for the things in the world that make us go like, ooh, that like just the moments of excitement and wonder that make you feel a little bit more alive, and try to figure out if any of them can have an arc to them. Mm-hmm. Most of the time they can't. Most of the time it's like a quick moment of sort of like, oh, that's a neat thing. But a lot of times sometimes it's the tip of an iceberg of interesting ideas that live in the same family, and then you can sort of create a storyline through them that lives along with the song.
I was listening to a podcast with you, and you said that you don't think of the ideas, you find them. And you didn't expand on that, but I thought it was super interesting. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, let's see. I think that this is by analogy, but like nobody makes up the notes that are on a piano. You find the relationships between them that make for beautiful music. And I sort of feel that way about visual ideas or sort of creative and art ideas in general, that there's very little that people haven't tried or done. It's a matter of stumbling upon the things that light some creative spark in yourself, and then chasing them in such a way, like it becomes a mirror of your own sort of psyche. It's like the things that light you up sort of form a constellation of ideas, and if you can connect them the right way, then suddenly you have something that feels like it was meant to be. Something that feels like it had its own moment of genesis, even though you really just stumbled upon these various things that all kind of connect.
Because it has to kind of like click in, right? I feel like music has enough sort of rules and things. Like I remember I did a film one time with an explosion in the sky, scored it, and I sent them these notes. Like I was like, hey, I need it to do this here, and can it do this, and that'll work. They just wrote back, hey man, that's not how music works.
Did you write back, hey man, this isn't how advertising works? It's funny because I've also directed a narrative film for Apple with my wife. It's called The Beanie Bubble, and so we've been on both sides of that note-taking and giving thing, where it's just like everybody thinks their sphere of creativity is like where the real creativity is. It's true that music has there's music theory, and there's all these different sort of mathematical relationships between things that are hard to break. But I do actually feel like they're very similar. For me, like I'll use the zero gravity video we did as an example. Our process for that, rather than be like sit down and storyboard out what somebody should do in zero gravity, because we've never been in zero gravity and we don't really know what will work in zero gravity, was figure out what the budget can handle and break it into 3 parts. The first third is just like, we got 20 flights, so it was 7 flights of pure play, 7 flights of a rehearsal, and then 6 flights of actually shooting it. And those are spread out over months. So we shot 7 flights of us literally just bouncing off the walls, being like, just do no plan other than we had like a little room in the back where a PA had to like on the first dip open a can of beans, on the second dip open a thing of Cheerio, like try to feel what every object feels like, or what every just get a total encyclopedia of what visceral feelings you can get from things floating in the air, and only after we did that we had hours and hours and hours of footage could we like say, well, it felt amazing to do this one thing, but it doesn't look like much, or like that looks surprisingly amazing, and then you can sort of begin to storyboard it, and at that point you can try to rehearse something and then revise and then shoot it. But you could never there is no idea until you've played. Mm-hmm. You have to see the thing and be like, I don't know, things feel cool in zero gravity, or things feel cool in slow motion, or things feel cool in stop motion. Like they're all things that we've all experienced, I think, watching films before, and I'm going to play in that one zone. I'm just going to do that thing over and over again until I find something that feels emotional.
Was there anything that you were like, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be awesome, and it wasn't? Like the baked beans. I don't remember there being baked beans in that.
Yeah, the zero gravity one was surprisingly limited, actually. Like most things just float the way you expect they're gonna float. Like it's like liquids look really, really cool, you know? Heavy things look really cool because they shouldn't be up. What's interesting is that almost everybody goes, you know what's gonna be amazing? We should put confetti. And you're like, and that's all, I got that suggested to me by so many different people involved with it. And it's like, but that's confetti does that without, like that's the whole joke of confetti is it stays in the air by itself, you know? And so like what you want to do is have bricks acting like confetti, you know? But there's a lot of things we hoped would work. Theoretically, you could put a bunch of chopsticks in the air and have a sculpture there. But in reality, it's just like you don't have nearly enough control, either your own muscular control or the plane. Like it's not zero gravity like you would have in outer space where there's nothing acting on it. What happens is like you are the bottle of water and the plane goes like that, you know? And so the plane has to try to chase you as you're flying, and it's facing all sorts of outside pressures. So it's doing this, and most of the time you basically feel like you're floating. Every once in a while it's just way off, like you just slam into the wall or something. But certainly you don't have the kind of control that you would need to be like, I'm gonna put this here and it'll just stay there. So we wound up actually having to dial back the idea to be much, because we knew we wanted to start from sort of a low level and get to a high level, at the very beginning, like we're being as boring as we can. It's like, we're just holding a laptop, look, it floats, I don't think I have a point here.
Okay, great. Great. All right, this is a long question.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so another interview I heard you describe about how once you get an idea, you have a sandbox, you called it. And like that resonated with me because I often call ideas buckets. And that it's not like an idea that's fully formed, it's more of a notion or a direction of an idea in the form of like a space that can be filled with even more thinking, and typically, hopefully from even more people. So from writers, in my case, writers, art directors, designers, directors, actors, set designers, et cetera. Why do you like working in what I would call buckets, or what I think you're calling sandboxes, versus having that fully formed, ready to execute idea, and then having everyone execute off of that?
I mean, it's sort of the same. It's sort of the same answer in that, like, it's all about discovering the thing. We don't start knowing it. It also allows everybody who's involved to actually make the project better. For what it's worth, I found almost the exact opposite in narrative film, because everything has to be prepped top down very early on. So like you make a plan and then you hire the right people to communicate that plan to other people who communicate that, it goes down a much bigger sort of pyramid. And by the time you're shooting, there's just no room for anyone to go like, oh my gosh, it'd be so much better if we blank, Whereas if you're working if you are able to structure your project such as you have that play area in which to discover the idea, you're not basically competing against everybody else in the world who sits at a desk and thinks of cool things, Because like, especially in the age of social media where we're all getting fed the same or similar things in our algorithms, and it's like, this thing's amazing, like everyone who's trying to discover those connections between things has the same, I mean, it's an infinite set of references, but we all have the same sort of like, did you see this one thing? Like, everybody wants to put them together in the same ways, and so you watch these moments flow through culture where it's kind of like everybody's into, I'm blanking on the things, but whether it's a particular technology or a particular optical effect or a sound or a look or a font or whatever, like you watch the things, you kind of bounce around culture, and if you just put yourself in the room with the thing and play with it, something else will come out. And it lets you set up a set of boundaries that I think are way more provocative and exciting than trying to start from a central point and work outwards. That's way too abstract. Here's an example of that. We made a video where the whole point was just to try to stretch time. This is years and years and years ago now, but it was like a stop motion thing at its fastest and a very slow motion thing at its slowest. Most of it was stop motion. It was like basically just the whole band in a park, and the shoot was 21 hours mapped to the song. Mm-hmm. So you like see us go to sleep, and you see us get up, and it's sort of a little dance that we're doing through the park. And as we were figuring out what we could, like, what are the different effects and things we can do, sort of choreographing the movement of time this way, we'd start to think of like, but we could do something if we had this prop. But once you've opened the door to that prop, then why doesn't now your rule isn't just playing with time, it's playing with time and props, and why these props? And like, and at some point, if it becomes this arbitrary set of like interesting things, which don't have any meaning or feeling to them, but if you can narrow your sandbox down small enough that you have really, really explored every inch of it by the time you've made the thing, that will not only feel totally cohesive, but it'll also be totally surprising, because there's lots of little moments in that sandbox that other people haven't played with, or at least not in this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's awesome. I feel like Chris Farley in that SNL skit where he would be like, remember when you did that video of treadmills? That was awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'll ask, so if you can use this last question to think of, we'll kick it over to the audience, but the last one is what kind of people, and maybe even in this room, do you like to collaborate with to get your ideas made and out into the world?
All of them. I like all the people. No, our best, like, brand collaborators and sort of like sponsor arrangements are always with people who are like, who want to start at the beginning and make something, and connect with people. Like that's so obvious. We're like the last people you'd come to if you're like, we have a 15% off sale until Thursday. Mm-hmm. You know, if your message is like a very specific thing about your product, we're like probably going to be terrible at that. But we're really good at connecting with people in a way that they will continue to remember later, and that like actually makes them feel good, which is like usually most branded stuff or most branded stuff has this kind of like zero-sum game where either the artist feels like they're like stealing money from the corporation, or the corporation is like peeling some cool off of the artist, you know? And almost everything we've made in that zone has succeeded because of the fact that like, if a company has something we can make art with, then we get to make art we wouldn't have otherwise made, and they get some kind of connection to the world that their product never would have had before. So sometimes that's like conceptual, and that's sort of more broadly like it's about innovation and about thinking about things differently, or it's about a kind of resourcefulness or a type of relationship to community or art. Sometimes it's literally just about the thing. It's like we wanted to play instruments with a car, and they let us have the car, you know? And it takes a lot of like, bravery from the corporate side to do that, or rather I should say it did take a lot of bravery from the corporate side 10, 15, 20 years ago, because there was such a set model for how you're supposed to talk to people in their homes. Now I feel like it's almost the opposite, where it's like, at least you know what you're going to get with us is like this thing, and how it's going to reach people and how they're going to react to it, which is so much less of a crapshoot than like a bunch of like influencers, right. You know. But it is the relationship goes best when that's what it is. Is like, rather than us trying to like shoehorn your thing in, or you trying to like look like you're us, we are going to go like, what kind of art could we make with that?
Right. Great. The lights are bright. You can't really see anybody. Any questions to the audience?
You, ma'am. There's a mic coming for you. I can just repeat you if you want. I do like coffee. Here's your mic. This is Aaron with Caribou Coffee.
Aaron with Caribou Coffee. This is from my team, particularly Eric, who is a big fan. And because you like coffee, have you ever thought about playing with coffee?
Playing with coffee. I play with coffee every day. I can't play without coffee. No, we'd love to. Let's talk. Yes, ma'am.
So problem solving entails a And when I watch your videos, they blow my mind because I know so much has happened in that time, and any of the things that you've had to go through would discourage a normal person from continuing. So how do you keep your mind on that vision that's at the end and get through all of the bumps along the road to make these amazing videos?
So the beginning of the question that you may not have heard is that problem solving always requires a lot of things going wrong, right? Did I get that right? Luck? No, I mean, you know, patience and a continued reminder to ourselves throughout the process that, like, this, God, I feel like I'm going to say such pat things, but there's really no benefit in B+, like, especially now, that something that, like, kind of is okay. Like, now that it's all the algorithm anyways, like, the algorithm does not give a fuck about your kind of okay, you know? So, like, and this has always been the case, like, it's a natural place for a rock band to go, because you're going to start out your life as an opening band playing for someone awesome, and everybody in the audience is going to hate you because you're in the way. They came to see that other band, right? So, like, if you get up on stage and play something that, like, it's totally okay, like, goodbye, you know? And that's, like, with our videos, like, first of all, we've got a ton of skin in the game ourselves. Like, we often pay for them ourselves. Even when we have a sponsor, we're usually, like, we can't afford to fail at them ever. Like, can you imagine if, like, the next OK Go video was the one that was really boring, you know? And so when you, like, run up against the thing that just isn't working, it's like, it's never really an option to be like, well, I don't know, like, it's gonna be fine. You know, it's just, like, we then have to just figure out, well, what was good about the idea in the first place, and do we have to, like, back up a little bit and take a different path? Or have we not played enough yet? Or is it way more expensive than we thought, and that means we have to shut it down? Or is it, you know? But there isn't, because we're like, the idea is not reverse engineering from an endpoint. So the idea can change, but the actual product is reverse engineering from an endpoint, where, like, you can't have something that's not great. Oh, sorry.
Mike, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so I have a question, because maybe it's riffing off of that question a little bit. You talked about, like, you can't afford to fail, but, like, are there any stories of, we only see the epic, amazing things you made, but what are the stories of, like, where you did go down a path and you were like, this is just bombing, or it didn't work, or it all fell apart? Because I know that we've all had those experiences of going, like, you felt like you were so far down the path and maybe you had to ditch the project.
So with the most recent version of this was the one we did with iPhones. The initial concept was that at the end we would have a big array of iPhones, and on each one would be a film of a dance happening, and that dance would, the shadows, the highlights, and the dark tones of those dances would collectively make a face singing, and not like a like line drawing of a face, but an actual, like, you would feel like a three-dimensional face as a mosaic. And to make this happen, we spent months with dancers and puppeteers and stuff, trying to, like, working really slow motion, being like, if we could do it sort of as frame animation, then we could probably build up to the place where we could do it in real time. And we finally got something using, like, we were layering things and doing all these tricks that we would never be able to do in the eventual thing, doing, like, VFX and everything, just to see if it could possibly work. And after, like, months of that, we got 2.5 seconds of my face singing one line, and it was fucking disgusting. It was like, we had not thought about the fact that, like, a bunch of fleshy limbs making my face is gross. Like, it was like the uncanny valley at its very worst and fleshiest, and it was like elephantitis of the singer. It was so bad, and it was a very dark evening in OK Go land. But what it meant was that we had to, like, look back at the idea and go, okay, our sandbox was going to be only dancing in this one particular way and doing this stuff, and that didn't work. We've got all these other great ideas that have fit in here now. Is there, like, what parts can change? And what we hadn't really allowed ourselves to do at that point was just inside the frame, hold up another video. And so we started, like, it let us do the same trick, which is a mosaic across all these different things. But what we could do differently there was that for part one, I could hold up this phone, and part two, I could hold up that. So we could start doing stripes of different takes, and like, it allowed us to go down a different path of things. It took us a while to figure out if this even felt like it was still inside the idea, because it was very close to it getting to the point where it felt like it just turned into VFX, and then what's the point, And luckily, because that one wasn't with a brand partner, and we weren't on a particular schedule, and at that point, the only crew was 3 band members and 2 friends, and that was it. So it was just like, all right, well, we'll just try again tomorrow. But luckily, we've never been in that position when there's a brand's money involved, And usually we don't get there because, like, for instance, every Friday I have a meeting with a bunch of MIT professors on a project that we've been working on for 12 years. It's not that good. It's not 12 years good yet. I mean, it's a good idea, but we just the first version of it was going to be $6 million, and no one wants to make that, right? And I think the idea has gotten smaller, and it may never happen. But like, we've got lots of ideas like that are kind of like, they're not dead. They're just, they haven't gotten the chance. They're in that moment where you don't know what's going to happen with them. They maybe did it forever. I don't get to call. The person with the mic gets to call. Sorry, I'm used to doing this from stage, and I just yell at people.
Where are you getting your inspiration right now from?
My children. And that's, again, what a pat thing to say, but I am amazed that I have 7-year-old twins, and everyone told me that when you have kids, you'll see the world fresh through their eyes. That is true, but I hope I can articulate this. I am more amazed that it has made me love the world and find more wonder in the world, not because they would find it wonderful, but because I am alive again. And that's super helpful. I'm also I'm finding a lot of inspiration in the panicked humanity that we all have in the face of AI. That, like, everybody's freaking out so much about it, and I am too. But it also just sort of like there was a moment in the music industry like 20 years ago when you had to sort of look at yourself and be like, none of this makes sense, and yet I'm going to do it tomorrow anyways. And we're all still here somehow, or not all of us, but I am still here, and many of us are still here. And I feel like the same thing happening across everything now, that everybody's kind of going like, my industry won't be here tomorrow, and yet I want to make these things. And there's some like that. Most of the time freaks me out, but when it's not freaking me out, it brings me great joy that people are like, this morning I watched a clip of somebody doing stop motion animation with a sculpture maquette, like the ones you learn drawing from. It's just like the most basic type of stop motion animation, and they spent hours and hours and hours making this thing dance. And like, it could have been done so much faster and just as convincingly by AI, and they didn't. And I was just like, that person had a good day, and now I'm having a good day watching it,
Over here. I'm really sorry that I'm not going to ask a question about AI, because I'm sure a lot of people want to ask that now that you touched on that subject. But
no, I don't want to talk about it. It's so boring.
Good. Damian, you guys have been doing this for quite a bit, and something that I really enjoy about your videos is that all 4 of you guys are all in every video. Like, there's not one person that like did an extra thing. Like, all of you turned, you're in each other's faces. So I'm wondering, through all this time, like, as a team, as a leader, do you see yourself as a leader of the band? Like, how do you keep each other inspired? How do you keep the other people inspired? You're talking about a project that is 12 years long. Like, how do you find minds alike, and how do you keep that spirit going for projects that you don't even know if it's going to turn up, if it's going to be a viral video at the end of the day?
I don't have a satisfying answer for you, other than like our band was lucky that we were friends first. I met our bassist when I was 11 years old at summer camp, and we started making music. we made lots of stuff together as kids long before we formed a band in our 20s. And the long road from our first practices to it being an actual job was mostly like hours and hours and hours in a van, and like laughing about the dumb thing that happened last night, And I think bands, mostly fail at this, but when bands that are able to exist a long time generally do it because there's some sort of implied balance between a democracy and an autocracy. Like it is a very weird zone that's somewhere between business and family. It's also why they break up all the time. It's like if you don't get that balance just right, you're fucked. And luckily we have a bunch of people who see pretty well eye to eye in terms of like the type of art projects that we find exciting and the type of commitment and sacrifice that those will require. And it's been going so long that we kind of know what that means. But it changes, the music industry is shifting underneath our feet, the culture industry is shifting underneath our feet, back to the dumb AI stuff again, like nobody believes they can bet on 2 years from now, much less 5 or 10 or 15. And so it feels just as fluid and scary as it ever has, but I've got these 3 guys that I've been doing stuff with for 25 years now, and like they're a pretty good bet.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi. Sorry, way back here. Hello.
I like your
Greetings.
jacket.
My name's Haley, and I research how our brains make creative ideas. So sometimes that means having to work with people to really lean into the creative. How do you work with people when they're like, hey, that's too much? And could you maybe give an example of when that's happened?
Too much too creative, or too much too dangerous, or too much too what?
Yes. Sometimes, that is creative problem solving. It is figuring the thing out that wasn't possible, but suddenly you figure out a way to make it possible. And sometimes that means figuring out how to make that happen regardless.
I want to give you a good answer. I'm just kind of dumb. How do I deal with people who don't want to do what I want to do?
You said that you're kind of a one-band shop at the moment, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, we're working within systems that push back a lot.
Yeah.
We can see perhaps a way forward. How would you recommend to work with people to edge them out of their comfort zone?
I see what you're saying. For all that I just said about working with the same 4 guys, it's also basically herding cats all the time, right? And it is, and our creative relationships with whether it's a production company or a co-director or a scientist or a brand, like we have dealt with so many hundreds of people and thousands of people in different kind of creative overlaps, and it almost always the case that it's just about sort of like when there's some kind of roadblock, that it's just about pulling back enough to sort of figure out where the common goal is, because it's kind of back to that zero-sum game brand interface answer from earlier, that we shouldn't be doing this project together, whether you are the bassist I've been working with for 30 years or you are the brand we just started talking to yesterday, if there isn't something that we actually both think would be awesome, that we would both be really excited if X happened. And if you can back out to see like what that is, if whatever just came up, like Instagram just changed their algorithm and now things over 3 minutes can't be shown to your non-followers. That's a real thing that happened recently. Sucks for people who make music videos, because ours are all over 3 minutes, Like, does that mean that what we're making now should not be made? It might actually mean don't make this thing. Or it might mean we're gonna have to make this a different way. But there's no point in you and me fighting about it. Like the thing that changed just changed. Let's just go back to what our shared goal was and move from there. And I think the bigger the organization, the more likely it is that people have their little fiefdoms and there's ego involved, and that has more to do with their personal relationships than it does to do with any goals. So because our organization is pretty small and usually coming in from the outside, it's relatively easy to navigate those because we don't necessarily know what the ego issues are within their bubble, but we can usually go like, let's go back to the goal. Because we didn't have the fight with them at the water cooler last month about the whatever that making them fight, you know? So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but in general, that's like the only way to get around it, I think, is to just go like, can we take ourselves out of this and just go like, is the main goal still there and can we still do it?
All right. Thank you for joining us. That was awesome. Thank you all for joining us. Go watch the new one tonight and have your mind blown. It's very cool.
Thank you, everyone.